This episode of the Totally Rad Show is brought to you by Carbonite. Today on TRS, we travel to Mars and check out Disney's sci-fi film, John Carter.
Today in movies, we're talking about John Carter. But before we do, I need to say something.
Bit of news.
Guys, no. I do need to say that, so I've started a career in making movies, hopefully. But because of that, it's now become a little bit inappropriate for me to start critiquing
movies for people that you're now
that I'm now professionally and personally involved with. So from now on, I can't really, dig in and review movies, but I am here to moderate and still be a part of the conversation. And,
as Mr. Movie.
Mr.
And still offer the same
And now your
stuff.
expertise is even more expert.
Yeah. You'd be like, that's not what happened.
I've seen the other side. I'm seeing the other side. I can tell you what. It's not.
You saw how the sausage is made?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? It's not what.
Just grind up cow.
Pretty much what you think. pretty much what you think. Anyway, that being said, John Carter is based on a pulp series that was released in the early 1900s, about 100 years old.
Just like the Oreo.
Really?
Oreo turned 100 on just last week.
Interesting.
Why was I not eating Oreos that day?
Why is it not
I was.
I had an excuse.
I was. But that's also called Tuesday.
Anyway, so based on this series by Edgar Rice Burroughs, who was also famous for creating Tarzan, the other iconic character, and was almost brought to the screen several times recently. It was actually going to be produced by Harry Knowles of Ain't It Cool News. Kerry Conran, who directed Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow, was going to be directing at one point.
That makes sense.
Robert Rodriguez at one point, and then even more recently, Jon Favreau. Now, Andrew Stanton. So Andrew Stanton, who did Wall-E and Finding Nemo for Pixar, made his live-action directorial debut with this.
This is sort of happening. I mean, it's like,
Right. Well, he actually has said-
MI4. I mean, this is like the thing that's happening is these like
Live action. Well, it's been, even Narnia was Andrew Adamson of the Shrek movies. Wait, you said most live action? Oh yeah, he actually has said, I believe even in Mike's interview, maybe not, that there's actually more animated shots in this movie than in Wall-E or Finding Nemo. So
That doesn't
pretty
surprise
crazy.
me.
So there's just more shots.
Yeah.
Just Finding Nemo didn't have very many shots.
Maybe. But
It's a longer. It's
significant.
also twice
Anyway.
the length of Finding Nemo.
Maybe it's not. Maybe I don't think it's twice the length, but you're making fair
Close.
points. Anyway, what is it about? So John Carter is a Civil War vet that is looking for gold in caves
hills.
finds through looking for this gold in a mysterious cave is transported to Mars, but it's not Mars as we know it. It's more of like Tatooine. It's more like a far off planet. It's called Barsoom. There is a civil war of sorts happening on that planet with 9-foot tall green men with 4 arms. And
we call that Avatar
and
style.
there is a princess played by Lynn Collins who John Carter finds himself abroad. John Carter, of course, on Mars, the gravitational pull is a little different on the human body, and he can leap.
It's almost sort of like what happened to Superman
When he came to
the
Earth.
sun.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe it's because he's closer to the sun or whatever. So now it like
Right.
affects him in gamma. Right?
Farther away from the sun, though.
But it's just different.
Isn't Mars farther away from the sun?
I guess. So.
Yes.
No, wait.
Barsoom. Yeah, it
Fourth
is.
planet.
Yeah, it's
Fourth-
farther
yeah,
away from the sun.
Yeah, because third rock from the sun is us. From the TV
I love
show.
how you're right.
Yeah. Wait, science from the
Earth,
TV.
Mars.
Yeah,
From the TV
for
show.
For sure.
All right, now that our remedial science is over.
Yeah.
So that is John Carter of Mars. Did I say John Carter? No, I didn't. It was played
John
by, almost said Tim
Taylor
Riggins.
Riggins. Yeah, right.
Taylor Kitsch, who
Also
we
both true
all know
statements.
and love as Tim Riggins on Friday Night Lights. Making his, well, no, he's not. Okay, so.
Well, wait, making it? No.
I was gonna say making his feature film debut, which is a lie.
He's
But
lying.
basically his leading man debut. Jeff,
Yeah.
what did you think? You saw it
Very
in
excited for this
2D.
movie. I did.
How
Smart.
did you see it?
3D, of course.
3D.
It's press screening. They
Not-
force you to see the 3D
Yeah.
because they're like, but please.
Yeah. 2 Dizzles.
No,
over
no
here.
IMAX here though. You
No.
guys
No.
haven't seen that.
Very excited. As you know, this is one of the movies we saw at E3 last year, and we saw
What?
a little E3 Comic-Con. Sorry, I have video games in the brain.
They didn't show it at Comic-Con. They showed it at that was a big thing. They
Oh, at the D23.
D23, the
Yeah.
Disney event. Yeah.
Anyway, saw stuff.
Yeah.
Got excited. We had talked about it as one of our movies of 2012 that we
Right.
were excited about, and
Right.
at every point, very excited. I mean, this is an old pulp series that has a lot of. I never read any of these books, but I always sort of wanted to from afar. It was one of those ones I just never got around to, you know. But it seemed like something I would like.
Well, you like all of the things that you have liked growing up throughout your whole life.
Yes.
Were were
is-
because of this. Story.
Because of this, and this is sort of in that pantheon of things that you read Dune, you read the
Right.
Foundation novels, you read Arthur C. Clarke, it's
I didn't
it's
read
in
any
that,
of those, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, I
The
did.
answer is
I
yes.
read so many of those. I
Right.
just never got around to this one. I just
Gotcha.
always assumed I would love it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I still feel like if I read the books, I probably would. However, this film is not good, and it pains me to say so. I didn't care for it. I think there's a lot that feels very rushed, and there's a lot that feels a lot of dense content that gets pushed through a meat grinder. Sausage is made, and unfortunately,
I can neither confirm nor deny that statement.
yeah. Unfortunately, it comes out really stale. I think really loses a lot of what must be in those books. Very interesting world building. We're rushed through a lot of the world building here, and I think there's a lot of things. Our main hero comes to information that I don't know how he got that information or why he starts feeling this way about certain things, because we don't have the time to spend of him just existing in that world, just soaking in how he feels about things, because we're rushed from one thing to the next so quickly, and it feels like this movie was a lot longer and chopped up. You know, especially that first act, it just feels like, wow, we have to lose chunks here and stuff. It feels very choppy and clunky, and it's a shame because I love the design of the movie. I love the visualization of these worlds. It's really unlike any other science fiction world in its details. I mean, there's large sections, of course, that feel like Avatar, and there's large sections, of course, that feel like, for example, like you said, Tatooine, the pod race sequence.
Yeah. Attack of the Clones in the
Coliseum.
Arena,
And of course,
yeah.
all that stuff is derivative of this rather than the other way around. But the details of the world, the technology, the flying machines, all of the stuff that is the real nitty gritty of the design, it feels fresh and exciting and fun. I just wish the movie was as full of life as that. You know, I'm a huge Tim Riggins fan, and I thought he was serviceable in this film, but I never felt an attachment to any of the characters. And there's really interesting side characters that we spend just fractions of a second with that I assume in the book we get to know a lot better. There's this guy that helps John Carter escape from something at one point by convincing him to pretend like he's capturing him.
yeah.
And I felt like that character is probably a lot of fun to hang out with in the novels because he has so much life and is so. But we don't know who he is or what context he's from, and you know, even Willem Dafoe's character, which is supposed to be the big sidekick, the big Chewbacca, you know, what have you. We spend a surprisingly little time with, and there's a lot of really dense, interesting facets of this world that are just sort of thrown at us that aren't explained, and I never felt like I was along with John Carter. I always felt like I was trying to keep up with John Carter and never really found a way into the story, unfortunately.
Alex, did you feel similarly to Jeff, or
Well,
were you watching-
I was not looking forward to this movie. I always had feelings from sort of screenshot one, and it's a very interesting. It's really one of those situations where you can kind of look back and go, what is missing? Because when you look at this movie, you go, all the pieces are there.
I agree.
A charismatic lead, a very interesting sci-fi story, unique, amazing visuals. I mean, the visual effects are amazing. I mean,
constant.
Quality visual effects. Great world, big dilemmas, great action sequences, like everything's there. But when I stood up for the movie, I was like, I just saw that. That movie is now something I have seen. But nothing, I mean, there was no, moment where I felt moved. There was no moment where I felt like, oh no, what's gonna happen now? I mean, really, it was just sort of like, that's very interesting. Ooh, that's really pretty. Oh, I like the design of that little weird weapon thing. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's a cool way to talk about traveling from this to that. Oh, wow, he's a copy on the block. Like, whew, that's all interesting. But I never really was into the movie. I just never got into the movie. I mean, it was just sort of a good movie. But you know what I mean? Like, I went home and Heather was like, well, was it good? And I was like, I mean, I wouldn't tell anybody that I knew to go see it, but I would say, hey, if if it's on a Saturday, there's some enjoyment to be had. I mean, the dog, like there's.
But we don't ever get why the dog is attached to him, and nothing is ever given the.
I agree with
moments.
you that I think if this was 2 or even 3 movies long, you'd be able to really get into it. But the other thing is like the relationship between John Carter and the princess. I mean, every single time that they are on screen talking, it just felt so cheesy.
Grinds to a halt,
and
too.
So cheap. Like, every way that you would say, you know what I mean? Like, I'm up on a wall, we've just met, and I've got my arms around you. It's like, oh, can you feel the tension? It's like, well, no, they're strangers. You know what I mean? Like, what, but there it is. Now they're in love. It's like, well, they didn't earn any of those moments.
Let me ask you guys, there's in the past few years, we've had several science fiction movies. If I had put on one end of the spectrum, we have a movie like Avatar that's very character-oriented and more action-oriented. And on the other hand, we have the Star Wars prequels that are much more into the
crap-oriented.
They're much more into the politics of the universe and whatever. How does John Carter sit amongst, in that spectrum?
Depending upon the scene, it goes to the Star Wars and it goes to the Avatar. I mean, it jumps around. There were so many like weird political machination stuff about why she has to marry this guy.
But nothing was really
arbitrary.
clear there.
I totally agree, but for those scenes, they sure as heck weren't in character-driven Avatar town.
Yeah, it was hard not to think of Avatar constantly through this movie because clearly, whatever year it was that James Cameron wrote the treatment for Avatar, he was clearly influenced a lot by the idea of these tall creatures, and say what you will about Avatar, I know there's a lot of backlash. I still love it dearly as a science fiction film, and you see the difference in how that story draws me in, and I feel like I know the culture of the Na'vi in such a real way. And here, where you have what I assume to be
the same type of culture, rich, traditional,
and you have
nomadic,
all these books. You have this whole series of books, which probably has tons of information, and I can sense that you tried to cram a lot of it in, but none of it. I never felt like I was welcomed in. I got the rules of that world in a way that I really felt like I understood the context and why John Carter would feel like that's his home now.
Yeah.
Because it's in a very similar story that now he's more in this world than ours. But I'll tell you this, I think the best part of the movie are the bookends.
I totally
was just going
agree.
to ask you, the bookends of this movie are not shown in the trailers.
Yeah.
And in general, how do you feel about those bookends? And there is even
the
a sequel.
flashbacks.
There's even a sequel set up in that. So what did you guys make of that stuff?
I thought the bookend ending was fantastic and really felt satisfying, and I wish the rest of the movie had that same kind of
well, what you want is that mix. Well, but here's the thing. You want that mix, and what I was really, and I see why they didn't put any of that stuff in the trailers, is because when I saw that, when we start where we start this movie, I went, oh my God, this is gonna give me that great mix of sort of Western, this time period, and sci-fi, and
there's a humor and rhythm to the beginning, like when he keeps trying to break away from what's his name, Breaking Bad?
Bryan Cranston.
Cranston. When he keeps trying to break away and it music swells like he's about to do it and then he's back. It was great, and it never really found
None of that humor came across in the sci-fi. And the sci-fi stuff just sort of, it looked like it just sort of devolved into Conan the Barbarian with somebody not like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know what I mean? Like, even to the point of him wearing the full, like, chest piece of, Conan the Barbarian or He-Man, and it's sort of like, oh boy, man, that other stuff was so much more interesting with the telegrams and, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I don't, but.
Oh, right, you didn't see it yet.
All right.
John
There you
Carter.
go, John Carter.
Of Earth?
Yeah.
All right, everybody, be sure to stick around. We're going to be answering one of your Twitter questions right after this. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Carbonite. Carbonite protects your pictures and all your other files from a computer crash, fire, theft. You can accidentally delete stuff. It happens all the time.
I was just at GDC.
Yeah.
Our friend Garnet Lee from Shack News.
Yeah?
Computer got stolen.
What?
He was
Like laptop?
crapping his pants.
Oh
Yeah,
my
he had
God,
to change
at
all his
GDC?
passwords. He lost all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So that stuff happens. And if he had Carbonite, I
Bam.
told him, I was like, you should have had Carbonite, dude.
Dude, what a sucker. Also, sorry that you lost your
Also,
laptop.
I have this new laptop I want to sell you.
Amazing. Don't worry if it's called Narlet Lee. I don't know what that meant. But anyway, Carbonite automatically and continually backs up your files, keeping them securely off-site. You never have to remember to back up again. Whether you have 1 or 2 computers at home, whether you have several computers in a small business, Carbonite is the better backup plan for you. Over 1 million customers trust Carbonite to protect their homes and small businesses. With plans starting as low as $59 a year, not a month, a year. You can start your free trial at Carbonite.com with the offer code TRS. You'll get 2 bonus months if you decide to buy. That's Carbonite.com, and the offer code for 2 bonus months is TRS.
Do it.
You do it. Get your backgrounds in, fans at TotallyRadShow.com.
Please.
Also, get your swag on, jinx.com/TRS, and have a good day.
Check us out tomorrow for our review of the game Azura's Wrath.
Today's Twitter question comes to us from @JamesGerstner, who asks, if you could have any sword from a fantasy series, for example, Anduril, Sword of Truth, Longclaw, I don't know.
All things
I don't know
that
any
Dan
of those. Which would you have? So I don't know any of those.
Well, Song of Ice and Fire's Long Claw.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Okay.
But also, no, he doesn't mention Sting.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Anduril is from the
Lord of
Lord of the
Rings.
Rings. Which one? Whose sword is it?
It's the one that they
the
put back
king.
together.
Yeah.
For
For Strider.
yes.
And
the Sword of Truth is that I think that's
Sword of
from,
Truth is from a book that I
Wheel
read.
of
It's
Time?
actually really good. No. It's from I think it actually might be called The Story
Terry
of Truth.
Goodkind. Terry Goodkind. Yeah.
I might pick
It's actually great.
Excalibur, the sword in the stone.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
did you pull it out?
I'm a king.
That's,
You're a king.
I,
If I'm
honestly,
using it,
I
I'm a
literally
king.
had that same thing when I was looking at this question. I was like, I think Excalibur might be the one.
Is
However,
a lightsaber
I
a
was
sword?
just about to say
Yeah.
lightsaber.
Well,
Sword,
that's a no-brainer. Lightsaber.
bam. Cut through
Lightsaber.
butter.
1, 2, 3.
Lightsaber.
Lightsaber.